Hi everyone, TheHande's here, and this time I'm presenting my top 10 Orko episodes from He-Man and She-Ra. That's right. So this time, it's all about Orko, his best episodes for both of the Filmation He-Man and She-Ra shows. Before we get onto the list, some honorable mentions. Driel's Return. I decided not to include this one because I kind of feel it's more of a Driel episode. The Quest for He-Man, which does feature Orko in a prominent role, but it's more of a team-up episode between himself, Cringer, and Ram-Man. And Orko's Missing Magic, which is a really interesting, funny episode, but one where Orko is maybe not super handy because he happens to be missing his magic. Now on with the list. Number 10, Shades of Orko. Yep, we're gonna start with a She-Ra episode this time. So this is not, of course, the first episode where Orko faces off against Shadow Weaver, but in my opinion this one is the better one. Basically, after Duncan and Orko help the rebels curtail an attack by Shadow Weaver, she steals Orko's shadow, which seems to be weakening him, basically threatening his life. All around, it's a very sweet episode. It has some of the goofiest She-Ra henchmen helping Shadow Weaver out, and all around just a good time. However, despite the somewhat serious plot setup, I don't think it quite delivers overall, which is why it ended up as number 10. At number 9, Orko's New Friend, the most misleading title from He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. This episode features Orko's childhood friend Squanch coming to visit on Eternia. Squanch has a habit of exaggerating as well as coming up with tall tales, which puts him in a bit of trouble when Orko gets captured by slavers. More precisely, the Slave Master, whom some of you will remember as making my top 10 list of standalone He-Man villains. Even though Squanch isn't really properly given an introduction before he suddenly just appears in this episode, he is actually a pretty likable character, and like I said, the Slave Master and his cronies are also very memorable. Definitely check this one out. At number 8, Orko's Return. Another slightly misleading title. This episode features Orko getting captured by Beastman and Trapjaw, who demand all of the kingdom's Votanium in return for his safety, and then try to force Orko to do their bidding, but it of course backfires on them. This is a really hilarious episode, where Orko manages to make a fool out of Beastman and Trapjaw, and of course you will remember this is also my favorite Beastman and Trapjaw team-up episode. But that kinda is the problem. I always kind of think of this more as a Beastman and Trapjaw episode, but it has enough Orko highlights that I think it deserves to go this far up the list. At number 7, the Region of Ice. In this episode, the entire royal family gets captured by the Ice Lord, whose daughter, Snowflake, has been captured by Skeletor. Orko pretends to be He-Man and promises to rescue Snowflake and manages to get Adam released under the guise of him being his assistant. This is just a really funny episode with a lot of great physical comedy, and I gotta say, the whole idea of Orko masquerading as He-Man is just incredibly hilarious to me. All around, it's a solid fun episode, and that's why it got the number 7 spot. At number 6, Return of Orko's Uncle. The second episode to feature Uncle Montork, and easily the better one of the first two. In this episode, Uncle Montork is pulled to Eternia when he's trying to capture a convicted criminal from Trolla. Orko tries to help out, but ends up getting controlled by the bad guys. Now, this plot setup is sort of flipped around from the first Orko's Uncle episode, but it has way better animation, way better characters, and it's just a heartwarming episode overall. However, I do feel Uncle Montork maybe steals the spotlight from Orko a little bit in this episode, which is why I couldn't have it in the top 5, but this is still a really enjoyable and really sweet episode. At number 5, Trouble in Trolla. Yep, Uncle Montork is back again. In this episode, he gets kicked out of the Academy of Magic, so Orko and Driel go out to find out why, come face to face with Whiplash and his pig cronies. This is a hilarious, cartoony, and also just a very well-written episode overall. It showcases pretty much all the best Trollan characters in action, and it's just a whole lot of fun. Highly recommended. At number 4, Daimar the Demon. So, Orko's feeling bored, so he accidentally brings a demon called Daimar from another dimension through a magical book and causes the balance of magic in Eternia to become unbalanced, causing all kinds of havoc until Daimar goes into a cocoon and emerges as a gigantic demon. This is kind of a bizarre episode, but the reason I have always loved it is because the day is saved by Orko just being a decent person at the end. Again, another heartfelt, really sweet episode. Highly recommend it again. And while Trouble in Trolla is definitely funnier and I dare say even a little bit more coherent, I just have a lot of affection for this particular episode, which is why it ended in the number 4 spot. At number 3, The Greatest Magic. Yep, this is our second She-Ra entry. In this episode, She-Ra is accidentally pulled to Trolla alongside Orko, and the two of them are tasked to take down machinations of the evil Dr. Zoo, who threatens all of Trolla. This is kind of the last big hurrah for Orko on the Filmation cartoon shows, and that's why I really like it. It's very cartoony, but also very action-packed. There isn't a single boring moment in this episode, and that's what makes it so great. It does maybe twist some of the in-lore elements of Trolla, and we're introduced a whole bunch of new characters that we never saw in any of the prior Trolla episodes. But this also made my top 10 She-Ra episodes list, so you guys probably already guessed that it was going to be in the top 5. A really awesome episode. Number 2, Dawn of Dragoon. This is the first episode where we go to Trolla, we meet Driel, and He-Man has to face off against Dragoon, a really awesome one-off villain, who also has a little bit of character development towards the episode's end. Now this is a great introduction not just to Trolla, but also Driel. It has a very dramatic ending to the episode, and because Driel is one of my favorite supporting characters, you can probably guess why I like this episode a lot. That said, Driel unfortunately really becomes just a damsel in distress towards the second half of the episode, whereas in almost all of her other episode appearances, she was a lot more competent. And this is the only snag to this otherwise very cool episode, which has previously found its way onto my He-Man episode top 10s. It's still worth watching, but I will admit that pretty much all of Driel's other appearances are a little bit better. At number 1, no surprises here, The Creatures from the Tar Swamp. An episode that told us Orko's origin story for the first time, has him discover his old magic amulet, and Skeletor took over Palace Eternos in like record time. This episode has some of the best dialogue from the entirety of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, great animation scenes, an awful but awfully interesting character in Lady Edwina. All around, this is just one of my all-time favorite He-Man episodes, and the second one I ever watched. So there's a little fun factoid for you. No matter how many times I see this episode, I always enjoy it a lot. And those were my top 10 Orko episodes. Tell me, what are your favorite Orko episodes, or even just your favorite Orko moments from either He-Man or She-Ra? Leave them in the comments down below. I'm Hannu the Hande Mäkinen. I have the power, so can you.
We have the power.